Very special episode today. I'm joined by former Sunderland player and now author Matt Piper. Matt, thanks a lot for coming on. Are you good?
I'm good, mate, and thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, mate. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this one for a while now. To get straight into it, how did your footballing journey start?
It sort of started playing in the back garden at home. You mean right back at the start?
Right back to the start.
Yeah, right back at the start. 4 or 5 years old. The story was that my old man thought I was rubbish when he first started taking me outside in the back garden. He really wanted a son that was a footballer. I've got an older brother that's
As we all do.
Yeah, I've got an older brother that's a professional cricketer, but my old man really wanted a footballing son. So he used to take me out in the garden, throw the ball to me, and I just used to pick it up and throw it away. So he sort of lost patience with me after 2 or 3 weeks, and my mum took over because my mum used to play football for a ladies' team in Leicester. So she started coaching me up then for the next 2 or 3 years. Then I got in the school team, did well, and then got signed by Leicester, mate. So that's how it all started for me, really.
Yeah, it's quite interesting that, like you say that, really. So, like, when you very first started playing football, it wasn't really much of an interest to you?
No, not really, mate. I just used to play it because I loved it. I used to, especially when I got a bit older, when I was about 8, 9, and I realised I was quite good because I just used to stand up front. I used to play very much like Jamie Vardy does now. I just used to stand on the shoulder of defenders, wait for the ball to get kicked over the top or down the channel, and I just used to run onto it and smash it in the net. So, which is very different to what I became when I actually made it. Because obviously I was a winger and I didn't score many goals. I used to hit a lot of crosses in the box, but yeah, that's how it got started, mate. And I just played it because I loved it. So that's how it all started for me, really.
Yeah. I asked this question to Danny Collins, and I think he had a fairly similar answer to what I think you're gonna say. Where I asked him, was there ever a moment early on when you felt like giving up, or when you just felt like stop playing football? Obviously, you mentioned you got picked up in the academy at age 9 or 10 in Leicester. I mean, Danny Collins didn't have his breakthrough until he was about 20 when he signed for Chester. Was there ever any kind of moments, maybe in your teenage years, where you just felt like packing in?
Yeah, mate, that's a good question. No one's really asked me that before, and all the time. The time, really. Yeah. I mean, if you have a bad game and you're in the under 14s, under 15s, I just used to think, I'm done with football now. And then 2 or 3 days would pass and you'd realise it's not the end of the world. So you'll play the next game, and then you have a good game. So then you buzz in, then you have another good game. And then 6 weeks later, you'd have another terrible game, or you'd miss an easy chance, or you didn't play very well, so you feel like giving up again. So all throughout my sort of footballing journey, until I made it, it was sort of up and down on all the time, and it was all dependent on whether I played well or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what was it that kept you going? And was there anyone early on in your life who... I mean, you mentioned your dad there. I would imagine he pushed you quite a lot from what you told us. But was there anyone else early on in your life who like really helped you along the way, like coaches or teachers or other family members or anything?
Yeah, my mum was a big one. My younger brother, my dad, but my dad in a really different kind of way, because my dad used to tell me that I'd never make it. And now, as I've got older, I realised that he was probably using some reverse psychology on me
to make you work harder.
Yeah, and when I did make it, I used to say to him, remember when you used to say that I couldn't make it? And he always used to talk about, he used to say that on purpose to try and make me make it. And so I put a lot of it down to his reverse psychology, but then a supportive mum, a supportive brother, and some of the coaches at Leicester. There's one coach in particular, Nev Hamilton, he's died now, God bless him. But he used to really push me and used to tell me from an early age that I had a lot of talent and I need to keep going. And even after I'd played not very well, he used to talk to me and give me confidence. So he's one that really used to keep me going a lot.
Yeah. So kind of a balance of the two, really, of support and then almost, well, like encouragement, but then also someone almost to meet you kind of want to prove them wrong as well as prove them right.
Yeah, a bit of a kick up the backside sometimes. I used to go, so from about 13, 14, I used to always get in this sort of England, well, not get in the England setups. I used to be in and around the England setups. So in the schools football and in the academy football and Lillyshaw. When I got down to the last 60 of going to Lillyshaw when I was 15, and they took 30 lads on and I didn't quite make it. I got down to the last 6 there. And my old man on the way home, he didn't talk to me all the way home. He didn't talk to me all the next day, the day after that. He got the right arse with me. So, you know, all them little things there when you're younger. I mean, I've got a kid that plays in an academy now. My youngest son plays for an academy. And I would never, ever treat him like that. But I always think to myself, part of my old man treating me like that is what helped me make it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a real difficult balancing act, I think.
Yeah. So like at the time, it might have put you down, but overall, looking back now, obviously as someone who did make it, well, at a really, really, really high level at the Premier League, like you kind of are thankful for it in a way.
Yeah, I am, and that's the conflict that I have with myself now, because all I say to my young boy is, "Did you enjoy yourself?" He's only 11. He's nearly 12. Plays for the under-12s. He plays for Burton. And I'm like, "Did you enjoy it, mate?" And he's like, "Yeah, loved it." And then we chat a bit about the game, but if he has a poor game, I don't get on at him. If he has a great game, I praise him loads. And I don't know if I'm being too nice about it, but that's just the way I am. So it's difficult to as a parent, especially, to get the balance right, and know what's best for them when they're younger. Because all I want to do is praise him and say he's done really well. And but it's difficult, mate. I don't know. I ask him all the time, "Do you want me to be a bit tougher on you?" And he's like, "No, I want you to be the way you're being." So we just have to wait and see how it goes, mate, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess at the time, like no one really wanted to be hard on them. Everyone kind of wants to hear the nice things at the time, but then maybe in years to come, you'll like learn to appreciate the differences maybe in approach. Moving on to your time at Sunderland, obviously you came in £3.5 million transfer, I believe. What kind of pressure how do you think you responded to that pressure, especially as quite an early stage in your career?
Yeah, well, initially, really well, because I didn't sort of look at the price that Sunderland paid. I just went up there and just wanted to continue my development. And, you know, the first time I pulled the shirt on for Sunderland and I heard the crowd at the Stadium of Light, I was like, wow, this is a bit of, yeah, it was unbelievable, mate. I was like, wow, crazy. But I loved it. And then obviously after 10 games, I got injured for the first time. And then, you know, when you're earning really good money and you've been bought for 3.5 million and you can't play on a regular basis, that's when I think the pressure of that price tag started to weigh on me a little bit, especially when we started to slip down the league and then go into the Championship and I'm still on Premier League wages. It became a lot more difficult then. I did start to feel the pressure a lot more then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what will you say? Like, obviously, you had a lot of injury problems. Like, what was the main thing that kept you going in that time to get back to fully fitness? Was it just that feeling of I want to walk back out of the stadium light and hear those fans again, or was there anything that you maybe develop as a technique, as a mechanism to help you have the strength to get back?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to play football. That was the main driver, because I was still getting paid what everyone understands with professional footballers. If you're injured, you're still getting the same amounts of wages. It's not like in a normal kind of job. So the money was never a driver for me. It was always just wanting to play and wanting to prove myself at that level. But yeah, it was so difficult because after that first injury, I sort of got back and then I got injured again within the first 3 or 4 games. And then I get back from that injury and the same would happen again. So I never really got a consistent run of games going, which is obviously frustrating for everyone. And in the end, I think I probably did. I talk about it in my book a bit. I probably did sort of give up on the professional football career because I was just never fit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you ended up was it retiring at 24 or 25, something along those lines?
Yeah, 24, mate.
Yeah, I definitely want to get into that a little bit later on. One thing I do want to ask you on is obviously you came in and your first manager. We're definitely going to talk about the second manager, but your first manager, Peter Reid. There'll be a lot of people listening to this who are a lot of Sunderland fans who I think will really appreciate this. I mean, what were your first impressions of him in the first 2 months, and was there anything that really stood out about him?
Yeah, he was funny, mate. He was funny and the kind of guy that you like immediately. I liked him as soon as I met him. I met him and then turned the move down to Sunderland. That's the first time I ever met Peter Reid. He offered me a contract. I met him in a pub up there in the northeast, and I just liked him straight away. He's that kind of character that you like. And he was brilliant for me. And in them first 10 games, he was probably one of my favourite managers I've ever had, Peter Reid. But obviously he had to move on, and then you already mentioned the second man that came in. He was just a disaster, especially when you've had a guy like Peter Reid that is like really on the side of the players. He's everyone's mate, but if you do something wrong, he's going to let you know. He was real honest kind of character. So he was one of my favourite managers, mate, I ever played under.
So, like, would you say Peter Reid's main strength as a manager? Because obviously, like, not that I can really remember, but like a lot of Sunderland fans we've got really fond memories of him. Would you say like his main strength as a manager was his man management?
Yeah, his man-to-man management, without doubt. He sort of called me in his office before the 10 games in we played Newcastle, and he sort of called me in the office and he was telling me how big the game was, and if I needed to call him the night before, he's on the end of the phone, he'll speak to me, and because if I'm nervous, he wants to settle me down. And I was like, listen, Gaffer, I've played in big games before, don't worry about it. But he did the right thing, because once I got in that game, I realised how big it was, because I played in Leicester Derby, Leicester Nottingham Forest. I thought they were big games. Yeah, when you play when you've played for the first time in that Newcastle Sunderland game, and you literally can feel that everyone in black and white wants to murder you. That's what it felt like. It was
Didn't you get spat on one time? You got spat on by a Newcastle fan or something along those lines?
Yeah, I got spat on in that game, mate. Well, when we pulled up to that game, it was at St James's Park. A Newcastle fan called my name, and I looked at him, and he spat on me in my face. So I sort of dropped my bag that I had with me, and I was trying to get to him and tried to fight, but he riled me up before the game. And it was not great, obviously. Yeah. And then when you get out there, you still got all that sort of anger. And then 2 minutes in, Bellamy gets the ball and he pushes it past me in the box. So I lean on him, just shoulder barge, and he goes down, and all that Newcastle nuggets, you know what they're like, they all go up in the air like crying for a penalty. So, and the referee blows his whistle. So I think he's gave a penalty. So I lashed the ball in the crowd, turned round, and the refs gave a free kick to Sunderland for Bellamy diving. So anyway, we lose 2-0. After the game, there's a knock at the door from 2 policemen, and they say that when you lash the ball in the crowd, you knocked a 60-year-old like Newcastle fan out, old lady. She had to go hospital. So I was like, oh shit, what do you want me to do? And they said, well, you've got to send us some kind of gesture. So I took my Sunderland shirt off and sent it off, signed it to the lady that I knocked out in the crowd. I'm really sorry, Matt Piper. And then the worst thing about that story is, mate, 2 weeks later, I got that shirt back in the post with this little note saying, keep your shirt, I don't want it.
I mean, to be fair, like the last thing in the world I would want in that situation would be a Newcastle shirt. I would probably just burn it.
Yeah, but that's the banter that I had. I probably knew she'd send it back, but I had to do something, so I sent her my shirt.
Yeah, I mean, in a game like that, can you really be expected to always just keep your emotions intact? Like even as a fan, it means so much to me, but I can imagine as a player when you're you've actually got to perform. You know, as a fan, it's a horrible feeling. You're almost feeling like you can't influence the game. But when you've actually got the responsibility of making sure that you pay back the fans and that the atmosphere that you're feeling, you're able to just play knowing under that conditions. I would imagine that's a really unique feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I like that feeling in that game. Like, that Newcastle fan obviously pissed me off, but in that game, I like that feeling that I could influence that game and I could do something. And I thought we were gonna. I didn't know if we were going to win, because that was a really good Newcastle side, but I thought we was going to go there and get a result. And when you come out and you got that nervous energy, you feel nervous, but it's not like a debilitating kind of nerves. It's a nerves that makes you want to run faster, jump higher, do the best skills you can do. And we started that game really well. I got the ball a few times in the first half, and I enjoyed that feeling, because when you go on a run there at Newcastle, and all the Sunderland fans are sort of like right high up in the stadium behind one of the goals, and you can hear them, and it spurs you on. But then obviously when Bellamy scores and Shearer scores and it's 2-0, you're gutted. So, but it was a brilliant memory, mate, one that I'll always have and I'll always cherish. Even though we lost, just to play in one of those games and represent Sunderland in a time where Derby was massive for me.
Yeah. Would you say that, like, obviously I know Leicester's your home club, but would you say the Sunderland fans are the most intense you've ever experienced? I know you probably don't want to say that as a Leicester fan yourself, but
no, mate, I don't mind saying it. The Leicester fans are great, and they're brilliant. Even like the Leicester fans are brilliant, even if you're having a bit of a difficult time. I think what you could say about Sunderland fans is I've never heard noise like it at the Stadium of Light when they're behind their team, or even the other way, when they're letting the team know that they're not doing well enough. There is no noise like it I've ever experienced, mate. Unbelievable. And even away grounds, like the decibels that Sunderland fans put out, even when they've only got 3,000 in a stadium of, I don't know, 25, 30,000, they're louder than some home crowds. And I was always of the mentality that if we're not playing well, or I'm not playing well, and the crowd are letting me know about it, that's cool, because that's a fan. And I'm a fan now to Leicester City. And if someone's not playing well, I let them know. And if they're playing well, I let them know as well. So for me, Sunderland fans have always been fair. So I know the current owners at the minute say it's toxic up there, but it's probably toxic because they ain't put a good team together, backed the people that have been in charge. And that's the reason why it's toxic. If you're doing well, or you're trying, or you're doing the best things for the football club, that fan base will get behind you.
Yeah, I think as a fan base, all we really want to see is 100% effort across the board. And at the moment, we just don't feel as if we're getting that, to be honest. I mean, out of the current squad we've got, just with you mentioning the toxic comment, out of the current squad you've got, I can't think of many players who don't put 100% in every week, but I can definitely still think of some. I think a lot of us feel as if with fans that we had these owners who try to come across as so transparent and so who seem to admire our fan base and want to uphold respect for us. And then they've almost flushed that down the drain as soon as things have went negative. Moving on ever so slightly, obviously the next manager who comes in, I was listening a few days ago to the video you did with Jacob on the Fan TV channel, and you mentioned the story about when he got sacked and he brought you all down to the beach. I was just wondering, aside from that, the most mental or the most unique experience about him?
Who's that, mate? Howard Wilkinson?
Yeah.
So I've only got a few stories about Howard. I think I've told them all on podcasts before. I mean, the one that, the few that it happened at the time with him at the football club, the Geese one is, mate, it's one of the most famous, just because, you imagine sitting all footballers down now, and you got big names in that squad. You had Kevin Phillips in there, Niall Quinn, Phil Babb, Jason McAteer. You had some massive names in that dressing room. And to have one of your training sessions as a David Attenborough documentary, on how Geese flying formation was like, mate, this ain't going to help us from getting beat week in, week out in the Premier League. You just knew it. But my favourite one, I always tell it, and I know people are probably sick of hearing it, but it's the Tom Peters one. Yeah, it's the Tom Peters one, mate, and it's because I still, just because of what this kid did that day, I still speak to him now. He's a great lad anyway, Tom Peters, but he sort of was nowhere near the first team. But the way he sort of got treated by Howard Wilkinson was like terrible. He just let him train with the youth team, never acknowledge him, never said hello or morning or how are you, Tom, or anything like that. And he did that with a few players. And I went through a period of that under Howard Wilkinson where he didn't treat you like a man. It was like you were a kid to him. And then when you did get in his team, he was, if I didn't play too well, he was shocking to me. But it weren't like honesty, like I spoke about with Peter Reid. He was honest. Perhaps you were shit today or this or that. And you can take that as a footballer. But when managers play games with you and mentally, that's what I didn't like. And obviously Tom Peters didn't like it. So when he called the meeting that day that he had been sacked, none of us knew that he had been sacked that day. And sort of all the players and all the staff are down at the training ground, and he comes in and he's so arrogant how he is. And he sort of takes his coat off slowly, takes his scarf off slowly. I said this story on a podcast recently on Under the Cosh. And them boys were like, it sounded like some kind of strip tease that he was doing. And that's what it was like. He'd like take it off really slowly, make everyone wait until he's ready to talk. So we're sitting there for ages. And then he turns around and he's gone, today is a very sad day for the football club. So everyone, you could hear a pin drop, mate. Everyone's sitting in there, not saying a word. And I still didn't know what he was going to say. And then he went, I've been sacked as the manager of the football club. And before he finished the sentence, Tom Peters was on his feet. Yes, get in there, going like this in front of everyone. And everyone was like, oh my God. And I'm looking at Tom Peters like, mate, this kid's a hero. Because no one, you got to think, when I tell it, people think I'm telling it to be a funny story.
It does feel that way sometimes.
Yeah, but I'm actually telling it to try and paint the picture of what it was actually like. You've got a Premier League manager standing in a room full of people, and he says that he's been sacked as the manager of the football club. And this kid that's never played before, but has been treated like shit by this manager, stands up and starts clapping and cheering as loud as he can. Mate, that Tom Peters has got some balls to be able to do that, let me tell you. And that's my best memory.
It's a Sunderland player.
Yeah. It was one of the funniest moments because for days, mate, I couldn't stop laughing. And every time I seen Tom Peters, I just knew it was one of the best things that I'd ever seen.
How did he react to that, Howard Wilkinson?
He said, well, this is one of the reasons, look at this. This is one of the problems. I've got people that don't follow me and don't blah, 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 and he sort of blamed everyone else again. Instead of, you know, like an intelligent person would think, why have I caused that kind of reaction from this lad? And you got to look at yourself sometimes in life, and you got to think, I do. You know, if someone...
Yeah, we all do, yeah.
Yeah, if someone clapped when I said that I've just been sacked, I've got to think, I wouldn't look at them. I'd look at myself and think, why is he clapping? I must have treated him terribly. And, you know, but Howard didn't want to do that, and he just blamed everyone else. You know, one thing that I do feel bad about, and I ain't said this on no podcast.
Explosive.
I've been caning Howard Wilkinson a lot, saying that I didn't get on with him and he weren't a great manager, I didn't think. But I actually seen him about a year ago.
But
I know, and I was thinking, yeah, as soon as I seen him, I was thinking, God, I hope he ain't seen none of them podcasts I've been caning him on. And it was in London, and it was at a train station. And I seen him first, and then he seen me, but I didn't think he'd recognise me because I got a beard now. I'm 3 stone heavier than when I used to play for him. And he looked over at me, busy train station at King's Cross, and he went, Pipes! And he waved at me, and he called me over, and I went over to him, and I was like, oh, you all right, Gaffer? And he was like, yeah, mate, how you doing? How's the family? And he was really, really nice. So I feel bad telling the stories about how I do now, but I think it was just in that football environment, I didn't like his character. Away from football, he's obviously, well, now he seems like an all right fella.
But like, I mean, I guess people can change definitely, but do you think that maybe leads on to, do you think that he was maybe then just putting on a persona to try and get the best out of his players, and he was putting on this arrogant persona to try and have an effect in a weird way? If he's then came up to you, after your career's done, and he said, "Oh, how are you, mate? How's the family?"
Yeah, I think so, mate. I think a manager, and these aren't the best kind of managers. I think the best kind of managers are the ones that allow their players to see their true selves. So, and the ones that understand themselves, that they're not great at everything. They might not be great in certain situations, but that they're, sort of an open book. If, like, I run an academy now, and my young lads that I've got on my academy, they know me inside out. They know when I'm down, they know when I'm happy, sad, whatever. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think you see that with some of the best managers around the world. I think Jurgen Klopp, Guardiola, Mourinho, they've got a closeness to their players where the player knows them really well and they know their players really well. And they take an interest with their players outside of just football. I don't think Howard Wilkinson had that at all.
Do you think he was trying to come across almost as a bit of a dictator and a bit authoritative, as opposed to someone who was genuinely like a friend, and you would almost rather play and work hard for someone who was a friend?
Yeah, I think so, Matt. I think the problem that some managers have got is the insecurity of thinking, if I'm their mate, they're not going to listen to me when times get tough. And I understand, part of that reasoning, but I think you can get the balance right. At my academy, I'm not saying I'm a great leader, but I've learned from good managers over the time. I think you can have that closeness to the players, but if you're good at it, they can still understand that you're the guy in charge and you're the one that is tasked with making the difficult decisions, and they'll respect that. I think some managers think, like you've said rightly, Howard Wilkinson thought that he had to come in and be I am the boss. This is how things are going to happen. And for me, that's a little bit of insecurity in yourself as a leader.
Yeah, it's almost coming across where he doesn't believe in himself, therefore he's got to come across as this authoritative figure, and it almost speaks volumes about his lack of confidence in a way.
Yeah, I think so, mate. And don't forget, he sort of sold himself on the phone to Bob Murray. Bob Murray rang up about Mick McCarthy to ask Howard Wilkinson's opinion. And Howard Wilkinson was like, what do you want Mick McCarthy for? I'll come and do that job. So that he sort of sold himself on the phone, and that's how he got the job. But then, as we all know, when Howard Wilkinson left after 8 months, they gave it to Mick McCarthy then.
Yeah. What was your experience like with Mick McCarthy? I mean, he's quite a fan favourite among Sunderland players. Like, first impressions of him?
Yeah, brilliant. He still speaks to me now, mate. He's one of them guys. Him, Peter Reid, and Mickey Adams, Mickey Adams, who I had at Leicester, all very similar kind of managers. And that's sort of, with the role that I'm in now at my academy, that's sort of where I've took sort of parts of their personality from, how they ran things, always honest, always open with the players, praise them if they've done well, tough with them, but strict. I'm a little bit strict on my academy, but they know that I'm there for them if they need me. And that's what Mick McCarthy was for me. And he still called me now, see how I'm getting on. And when I went through some difficult times in my life, he was also there for me as well, offering his help. So great guy, mate. Brilliant human being, Mick McCarthy.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that just radiates into the squad, where players then just feel that positivity, almost like you say with Jurgen Klopp and Guardiola, where because they know them as people, they're just willing to put that 110% in and run themselves into the ground?
Yeah, exactly that, mate. I mean, you're going to play better and for people that you respect. So if you can gain that respect from showing the person that you are, you're always going to get better results from your team. And you could tell as soon as Mick McCarthy come in, he had a bit of a tough time actually when he first came in. He lost quite a few games, but I always knew that he was going to do well because of the kind of character that he was and the way that he was with the players.
Yeah. Coming towards the end of your time at Sunderland, I believe your contract was terminated by mutual consent early.
Yeah, it was, mate. Yeah, a couple of knee injuries, and the surgeon told me that I should. The surgeon told me that I should probably hanging the boots up because my knee was never going to get any better, and that injury was just going to keep happening. So Mick McCarthy was manager at the time, and he left it in my hands. Really, he said, "What do you want to do? Because if you want to play on, we want to support you." But I said, "No, Gaffer. I want to end my contract. I want to go and do something different in life." And he gave me that old saying, you know, you're a long time retired. Make sure you've thought about it properly. Make sure you spoke to your loved ones and blah, 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 which I respected. But I had already made my decision, mate, that I wanted to quit. So we decided to do a mutual consent.
Yeah, my first impressions when I read back about the fact that your contract was terminated early was that you might have maybe wanted to kind of like do right by the fans almost in a way. There's a player in previous years for Sunderland, Jack Rodwell, who I think he had some injury problems, but to be honest, he had more of an attitude problem. And I think the reason he didn't play much over his last few years at Sunderland was just because he didn't want to. But he's a player that I've always said to him, like he was stealing a living. I know it wasn't your fault, obviously, with you being injured, but did you almost feel like a little bit of guilt in a way where, and not that it is your fault, but like did you almost feel a bit of guilt towards you like picking up this contract, but when you were injured?
Yeah, it's a really good question, mate, because I understand. I made a decision for me and how I am as a human being and my personality and how I like to work in life. Now, how I like to work in life, I don't want anything I've not earned. And that was my mentality at that time, and it always has been. So I felt like the club had paid 3.5 million for me. I think I was on 15 grand a week at that time. I had only played a handful of games in 3 years. So my personal, how I believe as a human being, I didn't earn, you know, more of that money going forward because I couldn't play for the football club. And that's why when I left, I was owed about 1.1 million. And I decided as a person, and this is just me, this is just about me, it's not about anyone else. I decided that I'll take 300,000. And I thought that was fair. Now, you got the Jack Rodwell incident for the situation that happened. Now, Jack might have been thinking, well, I'm a long time retired. The football club wouldn't care about me. So if he got injured, for instance, and his contract was run out, would the football club say, "Oh, we feel so sorry for you, Jack. We're going to give you another year, even though you're not going to play"?
No, but I know what you mean. We only really value players and what they can offer to the club. But my problem with Jack Rodwell is more that he was picking up a contract and he was just happy not to play, regardless of whether he was injured or not. I think he did pick up a couple of injuries, but there was multiple times where he was fully fit. I actually spoke to someone who used to manage him at a talking, and he expressed his attitude where there was times when he didn't even want to turn up to training.
Yeah. Now, you see, the Jack Rodwell one, so you know the point that I was trying to make, though.
Yeah.
That sometimes I would have been well within my rights to take the 1.1 because that was my contract. I had suffered from injury and it wasn't my fault. I was doing my best to get back as I can, but it will always come down to personalities, to the personality of the individual. And I've always lived by, I don't want nothing I've not earned. And that's why I made the decision I did, because some of my friends still to this day say I was crazy making that decision, but that felt right for me. Now, Jack Rodwell, for me, he's at the other end of the scale, because if that's true that he was fit and he could have played, but he just wanted to sit there and take the money, it shows you what kind of personality that he had. And I don't agree with it, but he had a contract, so that's what he's decided to do. I wouldn't do it, but I understand why he upset a lot of people because of the way that he acted.
Yeah, I mean, even if you'd decided to take the money, I think it's a far less problem than with Jack Rodwell. I didn't mean to get onto Jack Rodwell much, really, but I think it would have been quite different because with the way that things didn't work out with yourself, but that was because you were getting injured, and you're saying, you know, you wanted to play for Sunderland as much as you can, and you wanted to honour the contract and honour the fans' commitment. Whereas I think it's different with him because he just couldn't be bothered to play football.
Yeah, I mean, you look at his career, not just at Sunderland, other places that he's been, and you know, I don't know the lad, so I don't want to talk out of turn about him. But some of the decisions that he's made, and happy sitting on benches at different places instead of moving on and trying to play first team football, I think you can see the kind of personality that he had, and you can see why a lot of people were sort of angry with him.
Yeah, I mean, going from Everton, where he was flying, to Man City, to sit on the bench for years and doing nothing about it until another Premier League club that could probably offer, probably did offer similar money, came along, really. I just want